Thank you. Thank you, Dan, for inviting me here and kicking it off. And as mentioned, it seems like we have a consecutive series of really Branford focused initiatives and programs and projects. So there's a lot, as just even touched upon in those with the upcoming speakers. There is a lot happening here in Branford. It's something I think that we should be all proud of, and really I thank everybody that's been a part of it, because it really does take a team. There's a lot of interest, and we're fortunate in this town to have so many people who are actively involved in really just improving their town, really for not only for ourselves, but really for future generations. So I just thank you. Dan had met with me a couple months ago, asked if I would do a discussion. Kicking off the new year, we thought it was appropriate. Well, what do we see happening? What are some of the projects that we'll be focused on for 2023? And in doing that, I was, reflecting on it. We do, as I said, have a lot happening. I'll just get up here. But first, I think it's important just to really take a really quick look back, because I think that puts a lot of what we're going to talk about into perspective. And I got actively engaged in 2009. That's when I was, as many of you know, a lifelong resident here in Branford. My wife and I built a house here. We started a family here. My wife works in the Branford school system. We're committed to this community. I never had a desire to really get actively involved. Really, I always kind of followed what was happening, and was always had pride for my hometown, and never imagined moving anywhere else. But at that time, I felt like there was things that we could be doing that weren't progressing. I started going to some meetings, started getting involved, and because I said, listen, if I got to be part of it. It's our civic duty, I feel, to be engaged and when we can be involved. So, and again, it was really about maintaining the quality and the character of our town. It was something, like I said, I'm tremendously proud here. I have deep roots here in this community, but I think even those who don't have deep roots in this community, once you come here, there's a sense of what a special place it is. And in everything that I felt that, made this such a special community, the programs, the services that we offer, the opportunities that are right here in Branford, I think is what really defined our town. But in order to kind of maintain that, we couldn't fall into a period of stagnation. You need to continue to progress, to maintain that special place and maintain that character of our community. I mean, oftentimes people say, I love Branford, it has that small town feel. And I've always said, it's the people that make up that small town feel. It's not necessarily the size or the certain business or neighborhoods. It's really the individual peoples coming together and being a community. So as I said, that's what really brought me out, to kind of like get things moving forward, or be part of it, rather than just hold on one second. I apologize. I think I need a new laptop. Maybe we'll put that in the budget. All right, here we go. So as I said, I got involved back in 2009 and really wanted to be a part of improving things. And what is the process? What is the strategy to kind of move things along? And there's really a couple of things that I think are important, and I really try to bring to every project and really every aspect of government that I'm involved in, and working with others, right? I believe that there needs to be a strong level of transparency. I think that, even those who are not actively engaged should be aware of what is happening in their community, aware of the process. People have lives, circumstances. They cannot be engaged to the level of many others. But yet, I think that there's a process there that's transparent. I think, engage when we're reaching out to the community. It's very important to not only engage, the a group or a particular, segment or the various stakeholders. It's really, but try to engage or make those feel welcome to be part of the process. And that is something through every project or new initiative we try to lay out. And also there has to be a commitment. You have to be committed to moving things forward. Just to give you a small example, one of the major projects that we recently completed was the Walsh Intermediate School project. That was not something that started during this administration or even the previous administration. It's been discussed for a number of years, and there are a number of people involved in those discussions. But what often happens, I feel, is that we end up putting things on pause because of the short term, what is happening in the short term, and these are projects that are long-term projects. They impact our community for generations, and oftentimes it takes a commitment of several years to even get a shovel in the ground. So that's what I mean as far as being committed to these projects and moving forward. Cannot lose focus. So again, just quit looking back. So what have we accomplished over this time? And again, the major projects are the Walsh Intermediate School, the community center, the animal shelter, and there's other numerous improvements that we've made town-wide. And not going to go through all of them. I hope you're aware and you see the improvements that we've made to not only our facilities but our infrastructure, programs, services that we offer here in town. Again, following that, and every time we've gone through a process, we look to how can we improve that process? How can we improve on it for the next time we move forward? And also, what is important, while we're doing this period, where I mentioned those significant projects, we're also looking into the future in terms of not only how do we accommodate. Remember I said that oftentimes a lot of projects are put on pause because of where we are today or things that may be impacting the uncertainty of what's going to happen in the in election cycle, the uncertainty that may happen with the economy. But what did we do? And Dan mentioned that you're going to, in a couple months, you'll have Jim Finch. I encourage everybody who can attend that meeting, because we are fortunate to have him as our finance director. There's many people that play a part, but for him to be part of our town for the last 25 years and some of the accomplishments and where we are standing today is in large part because of his leadership. So I must give him credit. But like I said, how did we accomplish all those projects, but are still in a position to move forward with new projects, new initiatives? It was about building capacity in our budget and securing resources for not only today, but also securing resources for the future. So really, the debt level that we have today is pretty much the same as it was when we started these projects. And that's a strategy laid out. And the town has been recognized through our rating agencies, has very strong debt management practices. But again, how do we build it? We entered into an energy performance contract. We did $6 million worth of improvements to our buildings, but what does that only do? Not only makes improvements to our building, but brings down constrains our costs for the future. We entered into VNM, virtual net metering agreements, with a solar project built here in Branford, and one hope to be kicking off soon in another town, but we're a part of that. Once again, to bring the volatility out of the electric rates here in town for the town budget, but also to build capacity moving forward. Net zero initiative. Before I said we have to be committed to these projects and also improving the process. This is very important, because during this time when we were moving through these projects, we're looking at, okay, how do we build these, to steal the superintendent's quote, they have to be financially feasible and politically doable, right? And that was really the focus. You look at, and how do you do that? You justify the project by identifying the need for the project, and you lay out a process that can keep the support of not only the appropriating bodies, but the community to advance those projects. While we're moving forward, and what came up during this last few years, and a few members here mentioned the Clean Energy Committee, but I also just really want to identify Greg Ames, who's a renowned architect, and he was where this is something that was very important that he felt and brought forward. But once again, being part of that engagement and that openness, we began a dialogue, Bob Babcock, Shirley McCarthy, others, about this concept. And so during our animal shelter, I mentioned that project is completed. That is very close, if not, will be confirmed as a net zero building. And again, we were able to show as we went through the process that this added investment today will benefit the community for future generations and put us in a stronger place. It's a cleaner building, but also important, it's helps control our costs for the future. It proves out to be there's a payback to making that incremental investment today for our future, and when we're doing it at that time. As I said before, we have to improve the process. We started that effort probably while we initiated the project, the development, and then that concept, that goal of trying to achieve net zero or a high efficiency building came in as we were going through it. Moving forward, we will look to make that part of the initial process. So what do we have underway today? And moving forward, what will you hear about and see happening here in Branford in 2023? The police department is going to have a major renovation to that building, primarily on the lower floor. That came about, there was a number of things within that building that needed to be addressed in terms of the layout, the condition of the building, the structural components of the building on the lower part. And we had, identified these, and we decided 2 budget seasons to wrap up all these smaller projects and really address the needs of the department. We engaged in an architect to do a feasibility study. We just recently, the Public Building Commission, again, improving the process. I believe having a standing building committee who's involved in all these projects and kind of manages them as they go through has proved to be a benefit in executing these and implementing these projects. So now we just brought on a CM, construction manager. Right from the beginning, when we're designing, we're making the design team aware of our goals, what we would like to see. Now, we're not going to make that building because we're not touching the whole building. We're just really primarily the lower level. That's where the need is. But we're letting them know what our goals are as a community. So when the architect and the design team, the construction management are designing this building and working on the constructability, they know that is a value to our community, and they will implement that into their design. So now, as we go through the project, the Board of Finance, the RTM, the building committee are all aware that is part of this project. We're also going to be undertaking a field assessment and improvements to our fields. This is something I encourage everybody to look out for. We'll be having a kickoff meeting and probably in the coming weeks. We are going to there was a need. I've heard from various groups, different sports programs, coaches, players, parents, that we need to improve our fields. So rather than just doing, hey, what do you need? You're telling me we need a new all-purpose field. Okay, let's just build one all-purpose field and be done with it. We're taking this opportunity to really do a comprehensive assessment of all of our fields, all of our facilities that provide that meet the not only the organized sports, but really also the recreational use of our parks and fields. So it'll be two-part. We're looking at the Walsh Intermediate School in terms of, because that is very limited in terms of the use, not limited. I should say it's already defined how that facility is primarily used. So we have a firm that's is going to be doing a study on that, and we'll be moving forward with a project on that field. But we're going to do an assessment of all of our fields townwide, all of our sports facilities, our courts, our softball fields, all the parks. And we are fortunate that we have a lot of areas throughout town, but we really need to understand the condition, what level of play they can accommodate, and also study the demographics of our town and the future trends of where the sports are going. Pickleball is one that's really taking off, right? Okay, well now, what do we have to accommodate? We have makeshift courts. We're utilizing tennis courts. Okay, those are the types of things we want to know, so we can really develop a smart capital plan going forward to improve our sports facilities, our fields, town-wide. To not only, like I said, it's not only to meet the programmatic needs, the various sports programs, but it's the individuals' needs, the residents' needs. So that's why it's important for everybody to take this opportunity and be part of that discussion, be part of it. Wastewater treatment plant resiliency study. That is, we've funded the first phase. We issued an RFP. Once again, I want to stress upon, there's a lot of people that are part of this. So we've established a coastal resiliency, coastal vulnerability working group. Those members were actively involved in this. Primarily, I know Paul Muniz, Peter Henschel. They worked with members of the wastewater authority. Issued and developed an RFP. I sought the funding through the Board of Finance, and we are now funding the first stage of that plan. And what we're going to do is evaluate not only our plan, but we also want to look at the whole infrastructure and where is it vulnerable for future sea level rise, for future storms. Our wastewater treatment facility and infrastructure is critical to the health of our community, to the economic vitality of our community, and it is important that we are forward thinking and planning to address that. The Main Street and Green refresh, we call it. It's not a major revitalization, but we are going to be undertaking and moving forward with a project to not only reconstruct Main Street, but also take this opportunity to really make some other improvements with the transitions, with the sidewalks, with some of the amenities along Main Street, the lighting, and tied into that is also the town green, looking at how we can improve that. The town green really has, as many know, is really a jewel of our community, is an asset. It's probably one of the most heavily used greens along the shoreline. And I think there's historically host a number of events, festival, the book sale, the jazz series. But what we saw since the pandemic, or the start of the pandemic, it is used every single day just by people going there, and that's their place where they meet friends, family, some go to work. We've done some things, as you know, brought in tables, we installed Wi-Fi out on the green, and it is really great to see that vibrancy that is out there on our green, really on a daily basis and year round. I remember when the first year we had the tables out there, and two women were walking off the green. It was like October, and they said, "Oh, they'll be going in soon, right?" And I said, "Well, we do get some nice days in November and December." And they said, "Well, you may not want to keep them out too long." I said, "Well, we'll see if people are using it." Well, I look out the window from Town Hall in January, and there's people bundled in coats still sitting out there using it. So it's great to see. I just also want to, this ties in to the previous slide when I said about securing resources and maintaining capacity. It's also important to note with these projects, the Main Street project in particular, the resiliency study, we are actively pursuing grant funding and additional funding sources. For Main Street, we actually we're responsible for the design. We secured $8.5 million of non-local dollars to do that construction project. We are not responsible for the construction. We are responsible for the design. That's leveraging significant dollars. The wastewater treatment plant, we took the first $75,000 out of our coastal resiliency fund. Once again, how do we put ourselves in a position for future generations? I recall clearly the day I actually have just looked at an incident off the Branford, a slight flooding issue off the Branford River, went back to my office. And at this time, it was on our mind because I think the plan of conservation and development was coming out. There was a comment saying, listen, municipalities, it's going to be very difficult for any municipality to really address the impacts of sea level rise and climate change. Back to my office, and as I said, Jim Finch came in my office. He said, what if we looked at this as this coastal resilience, the impact, and we established a fund. He's like, do you think we can get the support with that? And I said, that is a brilliant idea. And I said, the one thing about Branford, we built a culture here to address our future liabilities, whether it's the pension or OPEB. I think it's presented. This is a future liability. And, we were able to seed that with $1 million out of our fund balance. We do an annual appropriation every year. We sought state legislation to allow us to set up and invest those dollars, which we were successful in doing that. Once again, taking an approach to ensure that there's capacity and resources for future generations and future projects. These are a lot less maybe visible to some degree or noticeable, but they're just as impactful, I feel, these projects. And this, again, I mean, I have a list here. We have a lot of things happening. But when I get to about, the quality of life and really defining Branford, and what are some other initiatives and program or projects that we'll be working on? Well, continue to make park improvements townwide. One thing I feel is important, that pretty much every section of town should have a park. And that was, you may recall a number of years ago, what would happen with Branford Hills school property. And that, was the one area of town that it was underserved by a park. And we put a playground in there. We got the field ready, and that is heavily used by some of the sports programs, the youth, the younger kids, but also by people in the neighborhood. It's great to see. And we'll continue to make those. Our Parks and Recreation Department, townwide, they have replaced our playgrounds and have taken care of really every park throughout town. And we have a few more that they'll be working on. This coming year, there is actually a splash pad that is going to be built at the Foot Park. And again, that is largely funded, through non-local dollars. And we are fortunate every year we have the ownership of the park now. Part of it was we do an annual grant request to the Foot Trust, and a significant part of those dollars are for capital improvements. Trail improvements. Once again, there's really a team of people who are involved. Parks and Open Space Commission, the members of that commission. Particularly, I will acknowledge Rich Shanahan, who has done a number of projects, or come in and advocated for a number of projects and secured funding to really open up our trails townwide. We are fortunate in this town that we have a significant amount of open space, passive open space. Not only, as many are aware, land trust, but a lot of it is town owned. And to open up those trails, make those improvements. And again, every year, the commission, those who oversee it, would again, a volunteer group would undertake projects and work within their budget. The last few years, we've really added additional dollars to really make improvements, to make people aware of how extensive our trail system, and make it accessible throughout town. So those are great to see. The Shoreline Greenway Trail, which has been wildly successful down in Tabor, we're making some additional trail improvements and improving some connectivity to some other areas through that tract of land. A new trail going over to Ecology Park. Really, once again, opening up and maintaining it. The trolley trail from Stony Creek to Pine Orchard. That was a trail that kind of fell into really under nobody's really purview in terms of a department or a commission. But that is something. There's the trolley crossing, the trolley bridge. I think, we've identified that is something that we should really need to be ensure that we're being stewards of and maintaining it. We do not want to lose that. We have a grant request to do a renovation of that foundation, because there is a lot of scouring that's occurring under that trestle, and we hope to move that forward in the coming year. I just want to mention this. We do have a pollinator. A lot of pollinator gardens the last couple of years have been established throughout town. We have one over that was built a couple of years ago over at the fire department, one last year honoring the veterans over at Foot Park, throughout town. And our Conservation and Environment Commission has undertaken a number of projects and really creating a pollinator pathway. I think the vision that we've discussed is really making that connection. We have a lot of large open tracts of land, as we discussed, and we also have some smaller parcels, and you really could have a nice walk from the center of town all the way down into Stony Creek, and where you pass a number of, like I said, larger tracts of open space, but also smaller space. And along that path, that walk, there are various efforts to establish pollinator gardens. I think it brings a point of interest, but it also is raise awareness of the importance. I just specifically mentioned, because I think this is a very exciting project. This started out of one of our elementary schools, Tisco Elementary, 3rd grade. They're learning the importance of the bees and that they play in our ecosystem. They're learning that through their STEM program, as well as they've expanded this project to include their writing program. I just received a number of letters. I think it was from 3 or 4 classes of 3rd graders requesting permission to do a pollinator garden down at Foot Riverside Park, for those who are aware of where that is, but it's off of Pine Orchard Road, where Old Pine Orchard Road. There's those 2 open pieces of property along the Branford River. A couple of years ago, actually, Bill Van Wilgen donated and planted 100 plants in recognition of their Van Wilgen's 100th anniversary. Actually, Bill Van Wilgen's grandfather's property was right across the street on Pine Orchard Road, right on the river. So that was something that was his generosity has established. 3rd graders are looking to build upon that. So they're, like I said, they're learning the importance of that the pollinator plants have in terms of supporting nature and really human life. And so they will undertake this project. They're getting permission. They're learning more about the plants. And then they're going to be looking for support to actually do the gardens, and this spring we'll do a garden. I think that's just an important project because it really brings in the next generation and really reinforces the need to think about others, think about the environment that we're just part of and what we can do to really make it, we should be strong stewards of our where we live, and something to be proud of. And there was a lot of excitement. They went down there a couple of weeks ago and toured the site. And like I mentioned, Heather Sweeney from the Conservation Commission attended, and she met with the students. I believe she's going to go back into the classroom and meet with the students. We had Gary Zielinski from Public Works meeting with them, getting an idea of where they wanted to do it. So look out for that project. Like I said, it's a small project. It doesn't get the discussion or the acknowledgement of something the size of a school, but it is, I feel, just as impactful for the future of our community. And that's it. I mean, there's a lot there to go over, and there's a lot of projects, but I really wanted to give time for Q&A. I think we already have.